Hey Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And we're at episode 173.
Have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension?
Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow, so the TARDIS should be free of the force field now.
There's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
The trouble with time travel is, one never seems to find the time.
Change, my dear, and it seems on a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc.
I am the Doctor!
Great men are forged in fire. It is the privilege of lesser men to light the flame.
I'm the Doctor. This is Rose Tyler. She's my +1. Is that all right?
That would be me.
Hello. Surprise!
Boom, etc.
I'm the Doctor. Do everything I tell you, don't ask stupid questions, and don't wander off.
How can you kidneys? I don't like the colour.
Howdy do, Who fans. We are back with 173. Hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related.
Yeah.
It's been a quiet one for me. I know you've been out and about, buddy.
I have, yes.
Saw a certain video that was posted on Twitter. I was very surprised for two reasons. Anyone that doesn't follow Adam on Twitter has reposted and something on Twitter. You were out and about over at the Who shop in Barking, weren't you? And,
yes, yeah.
I was very surprised for a couple of reasons. Number one, that you all managed to sync up with your Fourth Doctor scarves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that was planned or not.
Yeah. I'll explain in a minute. Go on.
And the second one is, how the hell did you manage that with old Mrs. Owner? Because she was even involved in the video that was shot inside. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
I know, it was very, very surreal. So I'll just explain what happened. Right. So my friend Will was going to a Tent Planet event in Barking, which is like 2 stops up from where the Who shop is. And suggested I couldn't go to the Barking thing. I wasn't too bothered about it. So I said, well, I could meet you afterwards. Because by the time I get to Barking, you'll all have done all your stuff. So I could meet you at the Who shop after, because I haven't been to the Who shop for ages. So let's do that. So we meet in the Who shop. I spent ages in there.
As you do.
You do, just looking around. And we went in the museum. Because Will said he hadn't been in there for like 10 years. So I said, let's do it. I never get bored of it. They got a tiny little museum in the Who shop. And it was really cool because normally one of the young lads shows you around and you sort of go around within 5 minutes. But he got called out the front of the shop for something. So
somebody taking photos.
Somebody taking photos. And so we got the older chap who I'm not sure if it's the owner's partner or if he's just part of the business, or really nice guy. He took us round. And we must have spent nearly an hour in there. You know how small that museum is. But we had 2 other friends waiting for us out the front because they wanted to go and get some lunch, who were doing their nut. Because we literally went in and didn't come out. But it was brilliant. The guy was just so in depth about everything in there. We were talking about, because obviously over the years, they've got to meet everyone. On the wall, I expect you've noticed because you've been in there, they've got a wall of all these photographs of there's them with John Nathan Turner and just about everybody you can think of from Doctor Who over the years. All the companions,
They've all been in there. Yeah.
Everybody's been in there, and they've moved locations a few times, but always around the same area. So he was just telling us all these stories and showing us all these letters from the BBC and things like that, and it was fascinating. And he was telling us about props that they've just managed to get their hands on, and this is going to be in here next time you come in. And so we were in there for ages, and we had the best time. Now I know me and you have said a few times over the years about the no photo policy. So basically, it is quite strict in there. So if you ask if you can take a photo, they might allow it in the shop.
Yes,
but you have to ask you because they've got they've got loads. They've got like TARDIS, a couple of TARDISes in there and Daleks and stuff. You kind of want to take a photo, but you have to ask. There are signs up everywhere saying no photos. in the museum, and this was killing me on Saturday because I like to photograph everything. I just go mad with photos. In the museum, you are allowed to take photos, but only on a real camera. So they won't allow it on your phone.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And I always forget. I mean, I don't even know where my real camera is. Do you know what I mean? I know I've got one somewhere, but but every time I know I'm going to the shop, I think I should take it because I want to get some pictures in the museum. But of course I didn't. So we're going round and we're spending ages in there and there's all these cool props. And I'm just dying to get a sneaky little, I'm thinking if he just talks to Will for a minute, I might just get one of the TARDIS console they've got in the corner. No, there was no chance of getting any pictures in there. So I'm going to have to go again because I really want to get some pictures of all the cool props they've got. And then we came out, and because we'd been in the shop so long, and I'd made a very cheeky little purchase because I couldn't resist it.
Oh, no.
You haven't seen this yet because I haven't put it on Facebook. She had a Sea Devil, Robert Harrop Sea Devil, in the cabinet.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, how much is that? And in the cabinet, it said it was $69.99, which is about the price it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But on the box, it said $59.99. So I was like, well, which is it? Because if it's $59, I would be tempted. And even though I was like saying to Will, blimmin' heck, try not to spend, but you know how long I've been after that thing, right? So she comes out and she says it's $59.99, but first of all, it hasn't got its little certificate. Oh, I like the little certificates, but how long have I wanted this thing? And it does, I'd inspected it, I'd had a look at it, got him to get. I said, oh, it does look good. And she says, and also it's had a repair. Oh, and this is it. You know what I'm like. I'm so fussy with things. I was like, a repair. And I was instantly in my mind backtracking, thinking, no, I'm not getting it. No. She's like, but see if you can spot it, then I'll be amazed. And I spent ages looking. I was like, has something been glued back on? Couldn't find it. And what it is it had a tiny little scratch on one of his little, on the side of his face. Okay. And they'd painted it. Right. And I mean, you just I would never have known at all. So anyway, long story short, I bought the Sea Devil, even though I'm sort of thinking, I haven't got the little certificate. But anyway, he does look cool. He looks amazing. I finally got my hands on him. He's a bit of a refurbed Sea Devil, but he looks amazing.
You wouldn't know, like you said, you wouldn't.
Honestly, mate, it's the tiniest. In some ways, I wish she hadn't told me because I would never, ever. And even now, if I stare at it, you can barely see it. I would never have noticed. So it's good of her to tell me. So anyway, bringing the story full circle, we've got that. We spent ages in the shop. We've been chatting to the two. I think they're the two owners. She's definitely the owner, and getting on really well with them. She was in an incredibly good mood. We were really having a good old chat about the good old days of Doctor Who and all this sort of stuff. So we're about to finally leave, and I must have been in there well over 2 hours, maybe 3. I've been in there ages, waiting for Will and doing the museum and all that stuff. And then before we go, she's like, hang on, come back. Oh, what's happening? Suddenly, a load of props are coming out. Doctor Who scarves, a hat, a dog, right. A great big dog appeared from nowhere. I was like, what? A real dog, I mean, not a prop dog, a real dog, their dog. And the dog's wearing a hat, and we're stood in front of the TARDIS. She goes, right, we're going to quickly record a message. Happy birthday, Tom Baker. I was like, oh, right. So we're all sat in front of the big TARDIS that they've got in the shop with this dog, with all the scarves wrapped all around us. I think there's 6 of us, something like that?
Yeah.
And we all record this little message, happy birthday, Tom, which she then puts on Facebook. And then so that we finally sort of leave. And it was an absolutely fantastic day. I'll tell you, I'm really glad I went because I so nearly said to Will, I'll just meet you in Forbidden Planet because the Who shop is a bit out of it. I kept thinking, can I be bothered to go to Upton Park?
It's out of the way, isn't it?
It's out of the way, but I'm so glad I did. And obviously it was on Twitter and, I repost everywhere. So it was a very unexpected little, thing, but it was a really good day. And I actually can't wait to go back there. I really can't.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Where is she getting those Harrop figures, though? She had the Ice Warrior as well, which is another one that they've not had for ages and you can't get for love nor money. Yeah,
I reckon she's got a relationship with the Robert Harrop guys because remember you were looking for the little dude,
Malice
for ages. And then I was in there one time and I thought, I'm 99% sure Adam's been after this guy for about a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Year and a half almost, maybe 2 years even after it was first released because it was been out for ages.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying multiple times on the show that you'd kept your eye on eBay and you'd seen a few, but they were ridiculous money and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that in the cabinet and I was like, where does that come from?
Well, yeah,
So-
and she's got another one, because that was the thing. When I bought it, obviously they'd got one again. And I went in and they've got another Malice in there this weekend. And they also, as I said, they had the Ice Warrior. Davros they had last time, but he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another one that's sold out on the website. So I don't know. Maybe she's got, on good terms with Harrop. And maybe if they've got some that need little odd repairs. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's just getting them from a supplier. But either way.
I'm thinking that, maybe if somebody's bought a Robert Harrop, and they've unboxed it and they thought, oh, that Sea Devil's got a little scratch on his face there. Contact Robert Harrop and they send it back for a replacement. So Robert Harrop probably touch it up and they've probably got a list of retailers that will take them off their hands for slightly reduced cost.
Could be, yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. They're just like the ones that get sent back because they are got these little, maybe at the time that scratch on his face was just noticeable that the person was like, not happy with that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's the sort of thing I would pick up on straight away if it was visible. If you know what I mean, before the repair sort of thing, as soon as he got the box, I'd have spotted it, because I'm really not, really hot on stuff like that. I'm not happy with any little marks. Like if you watch my unboxing video of the Titan things, the second I unboxed some of those, I noticed little bits like, the Bill figure's got a little scratch on her top, and I was like, oh, and Bo's got a little mark on his face, and the tiniest little thing, I tend to zoom in straight on it. So yeah, I'm quite hot on stuff like that. But yeah, so that was that, and it was an absolutely fantastic day. And we went to FP, obviously that has to be done if you're in London, and the guys bought a few of them.
Not so much these days. Not for me anyway.
No. Well, there wasn't anything majorly new in there. They had to do Mr. Men figures. I know you've got the First Doctor. I picked up the First Doctor, and last week I got my other half to buy me the Fourth Doctor. I'm still getting an ear bashing over it. You'd never believe, because they're £10, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
He's still moaning about the fact. He's like, blimmin' £10 for that bit of plastic. Because when I come in with the First Doctor one on Saturday, he's like, you haven't bought another one of them. £10 they are for that bit. And I was like, oh, shut up. You keep going on about it. So I gave him the money as well. It's not as if he had to pay for it. So yeah, I've got the First Doctor and the Fourth Doctor now. I actually don't like the 11th and 12th figures that much,
Yeah, well, they're not as good as the classic ones, I don't think.
They look, they all look a bit plasticky, but those two, I think the First Doctor's cool and I think the Fourth Doctor's cool, but the other two just look, I don't know, really cheap. And I wanted to buy all four because I was going to review them on my channel, but I actually just couldn't bring myself to buy them. I thought, no, I'll just get these two.
I think the Seventh Doctor will look good when he's released.
Oh, is he coming out?
Yeah, I think that one will look good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely get him. Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean, though. They do look slightly too basic compared to the other ones as well.
The 12th Doctor one in particular looks really cheap. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I'm just sorry if anyone, I've just realised somebody out there might have got, sorry if you just bought them. Yeah.
It's a fair comment, though. I know what you mean.
Yeah. As I said, I just was quite surprised because that's the first time I've seen the real product, if you know what I mean. Because I haven't been to FP at all this year because, I've been away and stuff. So it's the first time I've seen the real thing. And I was just a bit like, no, I had planned to buy them all, but yeah, not spending 40 quid on that,
No chance.
No chance. So yeah, that was me, mate. And then obviously back to reality this week with work. One thing I did forget to mention was last week, and I wanted to ask you if you'd seen this. Last week, me and Ad, the Ultimate Whovian, we watched Dimensions in Time because I met out with Ad and he come back to mine and he's like, you've never seen it? I was like, no, I have seen it, but it was when it went out. And I'm talking like, what would that have been, the 90s? It was, it's like Doctor Who meets EastEnders, and
yes, yeah,
it was like a sort of, was it a Children in Need thing? I think
it was yes, Children in Need, yeah,
Children in Need.
Yeah.
So we watched that, and it's all on YouTube because it's never officially been released.
Yeah,
and I don't know when you last saw it, but I haven't watched it since it went out. And do you know what? It's so bad. But yeah, I absolutely loved it because they've got everybody you could possibly imagine in it. They've got every old companion pretty much. They got all the old monsters. None of it makes sense. You've got Kato Mara in this weirdly dimly lit TARDIS with these doctors' heads floating around her, which are models. It was just the most balmiest, crazy thing. I've ever seen. I mean, it was just surreal. So I watched that the other week, and I just meant to ask if you'd actually ever managed to see it, or B, if you can remember it, because if you haven't, you've got to go on YouTube and watch it. They're quite short. It's like two parts. I think they're about 5 to 10 minutes each. And the first one is introduced by Noel Edmonds because they showed it on. Do you remember the house party?
That's right. Yeah.
So it starts with John Pertwee knocking on the house Crinkly Bottom's door, and he comes in and sort of introduces it and stuff. And it was, I don't know, I just found it a real treat. It was like stepping back in time to a very bizarre little production, you know.
Yeah, it is very weird. I remember seeing it a couple of years back, and then I watched. Funny you should mention that because somebody posted it on Twitter a few weeks back. I think it might have been Adam actually.
Probably.
And I watched it again then, and it's if any Star Wars fans are listening and you've ever heard of the Star Wars Christmas special, it's a bit like that, where because the Star Wars, have you ever seen the Star Wars Christmas special? It's like this very famous sort of holiday American special that they did for. It wasn't for any event. It was just something to put out at Christmas for Star Wars fans. And it had... Oh, right.
I don't think I've seen it, no.
It was set around Chewbacca's family. So you had like the Wookiees, like the family. And it was so weird. I mean, and it's known for being like the worst thing that you know, it's ever been put out to do with Star Wars. And it's kind of like that where, like you said, it's really bad. You could tell that it wasn't... It didn't get like a proper full-on script treatment or anything like that. It was just cobbled together with these various scenes and stuff, but in a way, like you said, it's although it's very bad and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? It's a bit weird, but it's a really good watch. I find it a really good, just fun little watch.
It is a fun little watch, and I just it couldn't get over like every time a companion come on. It was just like one after the other. So you think they've got everybody you could think of, and then you've suddenly like Lala Ward will be hiding behind the car in Phil Mitchell's lockup, and then suddenly like Richard Franklin drives in on Bessie, and then Nicholas Courtney appears in a helicopter, and then Deborah Watling's there, and it's just like, oh my god, it's just got everybody. Bonnie Langford, Sophie Aldred, and obviously all the doctors are in there. Well, Sylvester, Colin, Peter, John, and then Tom Baker's doing this sort of narration bit on it as well. So you got all the doctors as well. I think it was a sort of well, actually I was going to say unofficial, but in a way it was official, like 30th anniversary of the show as well. So they got all the doctors aboard. But if anybody hasn't seen it, as I said, it's never been put on a DVD, which is kind of a shame, but I think there's probably licensing restrictions with the amount of, you know, all the monsters they've got in there. But if anybody hasn't seen it, it is all on YouTube, and it's well worth having a look at. It's, as I said, it's so bad it's good. It's just worth a watch. It's Doctor Who Dimensions in Time. So I was very pleased that Ad got me to watch it again, because it has a reputation and I wasn't that keen, but I blooming loved it.
Yeah, it's a fun little watch, but it won't blow you away in terms of story, plot or anything.
No, well, I still don't know what it was all about, actually.
No, it's weird. I don't think it's meant to have any sort of deep meaning or anything. I think it's just let's mash up Doctor Who with EastEnders for children in need, and we'll just base it loose around Doctor Who stuff.
That's it.
Yeah, it's cool though.
Oh, and there's some outtakes from it as well, because like YouTube throws up, you may also like, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So there's outtakes from it which are actually quite long. They go on longer than the actual production. And John Pertwee's very he doesn't seem happy.
Stern.
Well, I think he's sort of saying, it's weird because it's a bit like when we were talking about that behind the scenes of Death of the Daleks, Death of the Daleks. You can tell that he knows what he's doing. So he's sort of saying to him, he's saying about the camera moving around and getting the line, and he's like, she's got to run off. And you can see Pertwee seeing that how they're doing it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird because you'd be thinking the people behind the camera would be doing that. So there's a bit where he's getting quite cross, saying, well, you're not going to be able to see me, are you? Because you'll be moving around. And they're like, oh yeah. And it's quite interesting. And he does get a little tetchy, but and Davison, being cheeky Davison, he says his line and you can see that he's just sort of laughing, and they're like, can you do it again a bit more serious? And he does it, but he can't help but grin. Yeah. They're like, no, more serious. He's like, oh, okay. You can tell that he's just thinking, what is this?
Yeah, well, that's Davison, isn't it? Because he did that in his final scene for Caves, when he's lying on the TARDIS floor and you know, that scene with the companions sort of swirling around him, and then the master comes up, die, doctor. So when they were filming that, he just had to lie there and stare up at the ceiling and sort of have this, you know, contemplative look on his face, but then he just put this big grin at the end, and in the commentary, he's like, "Well, I don't know why I grinned. Really, it's just it's all just funny to me."
That's right. It's because his last line was Adric, I think.
Adric, that's right.
So he's like, Adric, and they're like a little bit more serious. Yeah. He's like, Adric.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah, good stuff, though. So that's been me, mate. Yeah, Who Shot, bit of Dimensions in Time. Doesn't get much better than that.
That's cool. It's if any of our listeners that haven't been to the Who Shop yet, it is a little bit out the way, as Adam said. It's over in Upton Park. That's the closest tube station over in yeah. So I think from kind of central London, if you're in that area, it's probably about 20 minutes, half an hour out on the tube, I would say.
It's about half an hour, yeah.
But, you know, if you can get out there, it's a little treasure trove because you were saying that you spent like a good 2, maybe 3 hours in there.
Oh, I've spent ages in there, yeah.
I know what you mean. It's exactly the same when I'm in there. It's because you go in and you don't really know where to start, really, because on the right-hand side, they've got all the books and, you know, tons and tons of Doctor Who books, magazines, and then you've got all these props littered everywhere. And then over to the left, you've got T-shirts and figures, and they've got a massive audio CD range as well.
Yeah.
But you don't really know where to start, and then you kind of get lost a little bit, don't you? You start looking at stuff, and you've got to go in the museum. You can't go and not go in the museum. Because as I say, it's a tiny little museum and it's the back of the shop, and you walk through the TARDIS to get into it. And they'll take your picture going into the TARDIS and stuff. And you've got to do the museum. And there's more in there than you realise, because the guy was pointing things out that I'd completely missed. And I was thinking, how on earth did I not spot that there? Like, for example, John Nathan Turner's Hawaiian shirt is hanging on the wall, and somehow I didn't see it. And he's like, well, there's John's shirt as a little memory. And I was like, blimey, you know, there is stuff everywhere in every little corner in that museum. Yeah, it's not that expensive to go in the museum either, is it? It's
£3.
£3 or something.
Yeah, it's £3.
Yeah. So if you can get over there, it's a really cool. I would say the shop is geared more towards classic Who, because although they do have a lot of modern Doctor Who stuff in there in terms of figures and kitchenware and, you know, all that sort of merchandise that the BBC store puts out officially, they've got all that in there. But really, if you're into classic Who, it's great to spend a bit of time in there and just hunt through all of the stuff that it's really, really good. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's well worth a visit. I actually can't wait to go back. I want to go back in there. Yeah. But I must remember my big camera on the tripod with a big flash. With a big bold flash, yeah. You said it had to be a real camera. So that's you, mate. I've had a real quiet one in comparison. Yeah, right. A real quiet one. I've done a bit of mulling over in terms of this weekend, because, as we said last week, you and I are off to the BFI this Sunday. Yeah, to watch Day of the Doctor, which is really cool. But then I sort of threw a curveball in last week and found this really cool little kind of convention inside the Science Centre in Leicester, where they've got McCoy, Colin Baker, Peter Davis and Paul McGann all on the Sunday. Yeah. And that just really excited me. And we were mulling it over and, you know, discussing it with some Who peeps, and then sort of weighing it up and thinking, well, because, you know, additional train ticket cost, and then, you know, buying lunch and then paying for autographs and photos and stuff, it all adds up. And then kind of thinking, well, we've already paid for our tickets for the BFI as well, so, you know, it would be a very expensive sort of Sunday for more reasons than one. Yeah. So we're going to stick with the BFI, aren't we? We're going to stay true to our ticket purchase there. Absolutely, man. I mean, it was very tempting, because the thought of getting a photo shoot with all of those doctors on a, you know, really cool TARDIS set, which they seem to have there. Certainly very tempting. And I know a lot of the guys I was with on Saturday had also bought tickets to the Day of the Doctor at BFI. They've actually decided to dump it to go to this as well. So I'm thinking, oh God, there might be a few empty seats. But no, I'm really looking forward. I said this to you when we finished recording last week, actually, after we stopped recording. I'm really looking forward to seeing Day of the Doctor on the big screen, because I didn't see it on the big screen when it was aired. Me and you haven't reviewed it, and we've both got quite strong opinions on it. Yes. And I'm looking forward to watching it again, just to sort of get
a good opinion of it in terms of what I really think, because I don't know what I really think because I've only watched it twice. So I'm looking forward to seeing it again and on the big screen, and then we can have a good old chat about it afterwards. And then at some point we will review it, and that's going to be quite the review, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, because you and I have got. I think we haven't even really spoken about it too much.
No,
when we have, we've had very strong opinions on that one. So
yeah, so it's going to be a good old chat down the pub afterwards. I think after the beer fight, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yes, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
So not much else really. I have been doing a bit of hunting on eBay for a couple of things, but nothing's popped up yet. I've cancelled the search for the special weapons Dalek because I'm just holding out for the Robert Harrop.
That's going to be a beauty
now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, just I want to say a big thank you actually to just our general bunch of listeners. As it happens, have been doing a bit of scouring through the numbers, if you like, over the last couple of days, and we've our numbers have grown a lot since Christmas actually.
Oh right.
So the few shows that we've done since Crimbo and running up to Christmas, although it's fairly quiet because there's no new Doctor Who on the TV, we've actually ramped up quite a bit. So our rankings are very high and our numbers are up and everything. So just want to say a big thank you really to everyone that's either sort of listened to us from the early days and stuck with us, or new listeners that have jumped on board. It's really, really cool. And we've had a bunch of new reviews on iTunes as well, and they're all really nice. So just a really big thank you to all of you that listen either now and then or religiously every week. It's just amazing that, we have a really big listenership now, and you guys, it's just awesome, because it would be really stupid just you and I sitting here gassing away and nobody's listening. It'd be
talking to nobody, talking to the cat.
To the cat, yeah. So that'd be really. So it's great. So just a big thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guy. That's really cool to know. Just before you move on before you land it, mate, you just mentioned the new Doctor there. It just made me think. Did you see our new Doctor on the National Television Awards last night?
Indeed, yes.
Jodie, introducing a little award. I couldn't work out. Did she also did it win a award itself for the standout moment or something?
Yes, it was
of her being unveiled. As the new Doctor.
Yeah,
was that?
I think so.
Yeah, well, it showed it, and it said something about TV moment of the year, and then it showed, Jodie removing the hoodie and, revealing the 13th Doctor. And I was like, does that mean it's won an award, or are they just showing that or what? So I wasn't too sure. But then she came on the stage to present an award, and I bet, like me, you were hoping, because David Tennant was nominated, so she read out his name. Who else? Somebody else from Doctor Who. It might have been Jenna Coleman, I think, or something.
Oh yeah, for Victoria.
I really hope one of those wins, because not Jenna, because I don't like her, but I really hope David Tennant wins, because it would be really cool to see like Jodie and David on the same stage. Yay! But no, he didn't. Somebody else won, who I can't even remember. But it's really cool to see Jodie on stage, and Bradley Walsh was in the audience being mischievous as he always is, and stuff. So I was thinking, this is kind of our new TARDIS team already, getting out there and doing the award shows, and it's very cool. Yeah,
it's cool. And I think there was a moment where I think Chris Chibnall won an award for something, if I remember.
Did he? I must have missed that.
Yeah, and he saw Jodie, because that was when she wasn't presenting; she was just in the audience, and she sort of jumped up and she was clapping and things, and then
I didn't see that.
In the background you saw, because the moth was there.
I saw the moth next to Gatiss.
Yes.
And he looked a bit grumpy, didn't he?
He did,
sort of slumped in his seat.
So when Chibnall won something, it might have been for Broadchurch, I can't remember.
Oh, it was Broadchurch. Yeah, won something, yeah.
So when, sort of the applause went up and stuff, you just saw Moffat looking very kind of sheepish, a couple of rows back, thinking,
I did see that shot of him. He was just sort of slumped down, and because Mark sort of looked at the camera. It was when Sherlock was nominated, I think.
Right.
And he kind of just sort of shrugged, didn't he, them off, as if to say, whatever.
Thinking, I was there one day.
Yeah.
One day many moons ago, I was up there bagging awards for stuff. But it's interesting because a couple of people have already been on the socials to say that where's Doctor Who these days?
Yeah,
we're not even getting nominated for certain things now, let alone in a chance to win anything. It's
I did think that myself, actually. I said to my other half, I was like, Doctor Who's not even on the nominations anymore. It's really sad. Like I can remember, like, you know, at one point you didn't even need to ask. You knew it was going to be on there, even if it didn't win. You knew it'd be nominated. Wasn't even on it at all this year. I don't know if it was last year. I can't remember. But yeah, I think a lot of people picked up on that on Twitter, didn't they? Saying, you know, bit of a sign of the times, isn't it? Yeah, we'll see. That may change.
Hopefully it will change now that we've got
next year.
You know, a big, I don't want to use the word reboot, but it is like a refresh, if you like, in some respects.
Rebranding, yeah, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully that sort of energise, you know, everybody and get Who back into the, not the public eye, because it's very, Who's always in the public eye, but in terms of getting it in front of awards and, you know, because we should be bagging more awards, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know. Anyways, I think we've waffled for quite enough.
I think so.
Shall we land it?
Yeah.
Only one bit of news this week, and surprise, this seems to be par for the course for 2018, which I'm hoping doesn't continue, but we report some sad news. So Peter Wyngarde, who you may have known from a couple of things in the past, notably his portrayal of so he was in this kind of British crime spy-ish kind of movie that was very famous back in the day, which kind of inspired the Mike Myers and his Austin Powers kind of thing. It was not a film, it was a TV series, Department S, and he played a character called Jason King. So it was this very kind of Bee Gees shirt open medallion kind of sort of womanizer kind of character, and which was quite famous back at the time. But then he also obviously went on to star in Doctor Who and the story Planet of Fire. He played Timonov in Planet of Fire, which was I'm not sure how you feel about Planet of Fire. It's a kind of I'm going to use this word again. It's an interesting story, that one. That's like my get out clause, because it you know, I'm not insinuating it's good or bad. It's interesting.
Yeah, and also I was thinking we haven't reviewed it, so be careful.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that was his only involvement with Doctor Who, but the character was quite a liked character. You know, when the news first broke about Peter passing away, there was a hell of a lot of tribute from Doctor Who fans on Twitter and Facebook. So obviously a liked character from that story, but the Department S stuff was really very cool back in the day. So yeah, just sad really. He does sort of pass away at the age of 90, but that's kind of not confirmed, because he was always a bit elusive about his age and where he was from and all that stuff. So roughly the age of 90, Peter leaves us.
Yeah, it is sad news. I never got to meet him. I know, chatting to a few Doctor Who friends when the news broke, who had got to meet him, he said he was very nice at conventions and stuff. I remember seeing him at one, the Westminster Film Fair, which might have been last year or the year before. But sadly I didn't get to meet him. But yeah, Planet of Fire, we'll get round to reviewing that one day. But
yeah, he was quite popular on the convention circuit for a while, I believe, because he quit acting at his fairly early age, I suppose, and then just did the whole convention thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
so sad news.
It is sad news. So that's the only news we have. It's very quiet over the fields of Doctor Who news and fandom and so on. So we better get our metal friend in.
Yeah, he can't wait. Look at him. Can't wait to get in here.
Merch corner. Merch corner. Merch corner.
I don't know whether to be impressed or disgusted.
It's a bit rubbish, but it's pretty. It's very pretty.
Thank you for that.
Has he had his lights redone? They look like it looks like he's had the Dalek Invasion Earth big lights put on. I don't know. He's wheeled out. Looks like he's had a little bit of work done.
Yeah, I reckon he's been on Wheeler Dealer. Wheeler Dealers. I don't know if you ever heard of that program.
Wheeler Dealers. Yeah.
If you're into cars, over on Discovery, Mike Brewer of Mike Brewer Motors buys a car and then his mate in the garage does it up and sells it on. Sounds very familiar.
Just looks a bit different, but he didn't stick around, did he?
Yeah, because I remember going to put the Skybox on after he was watching TV the other day, and it was on Discovery.
Ah, it's all adding up.
Yeah, little bugger. What's that? No. Back in the shed. Can I have some Weetabix, honestly?
Oh, he's terrible.
God.
He's already had 3.
Anyways, he has slammed down the tray over in Merch Corner, which contains a couple of interesting things here. The first one is, and I know you're a fan of these.
Yeah.
Is the DVD range of the, it's called The Doctor's Range. And it's the insert Doctor name here, Years DVD. So in this case, they're following on. We've now got the Sylvester McCoy Years on DVD for real-time pictures. So this is the guys that put all of the, they basically go through all the archives, don't they, and dig out a load of interview footage and you know, a load of making ofs kind of thing, if you like, from all the Doctors. So a lot of their appearances and interviews and so on. And I think they last for quite a long time, don't they? Is it a couple of hours worth of stuff? So based on your previous editions that you've bagged from these ones, what are you going to order this one? Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, A, because I love the McCoy Years, but B, they're good values, these, because I know it's the pre-order price on Amazon's $14.99 on it. I've never paid more than a tenner for these. If you go into FOP or H&V, and Amazon normally lower the price when they actually get released anyway. So for a tenner, you get 2 discs, and you're right, they're normally quite long interviews, and they normally are with people that you know didn't get interviewed that much back in the day and stuff. So there's normally some good little nuggets in there, and I've really enjoyed these, mate. So they've done 4 so far. So done the first 4 Doctors so far. It's interesting that they're jumping to McCoy. I just naturally assumed Davison would be next, but I thought that. But no, they're good value. The interviews, I mean, the quality does vary in terms of picture quality and stuff because they're quite old and sometimes some of them, but they're perfectly watchable, and they're interesting. It's just, as I said, for a tenner for 2 discs, even if some of them are better than others, you can't really go wrong. They're really good. So this is good. I'm glad to see they're carrying on the range, and I'm very pleased that McCoy's next because, as I said, I like his era. So I'm wondering who they'll have on there. I'm thinking. And I don't know because we haven't got any details yet, but hopefully Kate O'Mara would be cool. Yes. Sophie and Bonnie, I assume. Sylvester himself, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I'll definitely get this. It's actually not out till June, though. I was thinking, is it soon? Oh, no, it's June. But anyway, it's good to see it's coming out. Yeah. Yeah,
so I think this is, that's why we haven't got the cover artwork yet or any details because it's a few months away yet. However, like you said, I haven't, it normally goes up for pre-order at 15 quid, doesn't it? But it's normally at $9.99 by the time it's.
Yeah, as I said, I've never paid over a tenner for them.
Yeah, I might have to start picking these up though, because a lot of people have said now that they're very interesting, good value. So.
Oh, they are. They're definitely worth it. Yeah, you can't go wrong for a tenner. They're good stuff.
Cool.
Yes. What else has he got for us then? Oh, a Big Finish release that's coming out in April called The 10th Doctor Chronicles, which is going to be, I assume, a 4 CD set. Mm-hmm. It's got 4 stories on it. Now, these ones, although it's got David Tennant very prominently on the cover, doesn't actually star David Tennant. It's going to be narrated by Jacob Dudman, it says on there. Most listeners will know him as Jake Dudman from YouTube, who does a very good impersonation of the 10th Doctor, I have to say.
Yes.
He's also very well known for doing the 11th Doctor and the 12th, I think. He does. Yeah, he's very good at these. So he should be a good choice as a narrator. We've got 4 stories, as I said. The Taste of Death, Backtrack, I misread that. Wild Pastures. I won't tell you what I thought it said. And Last Chance are the 4 stories on here. So this is coming out in April, as I said. The pre-order price at the minute is £23. I didn't buy the 9th Doctor Chronicles because I listened to the trailer and thought Nick Briggs' impersonation of Ninth Doctor just didn't do it for me, so I never picked that one up. I'll be honest with you, mate, I probably won't get this one either, but I would imagine it'll be quite good. I can imagine there's an audience for it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But it's when I say that, I just mean it's just not for me. I don't really. I've got so much Big Finish at the minute that I still need to listen to, and so yeah. I might pick it up somewhere down the line, but not at the minute. But it does look okay. It does look quite good. It's got Michelle Ryan in it, hasn't it? I've just noticed on the cover there as well.
Yeah,
coming back as Lady Christina D'Souza. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So Planet of the Dead.
Oh, I don't like that story.
Yeah, she was the kind of Lara Crofty, sort of Tomb Raidery, dual thief mashup-y kind of character. But Jacqueline King's coming back as Sylvia Noble.
Yes, I just noticed that. Yeah, and we've got the Slovene as well on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And good to see Slovene. Yeah, I mean, one of Planet of the Dead is one of those stories I really don't. No, I'm just not a fan of. So again, that's another reason I'm not too keen to pick this straight up. But yeah, good to see Donna's mum on there. It's interesting.
And John Coulshaw starring as well in an undisclosed role at the moment. So obviously a man of 1,000 voices. I'm sure that'd be good. I won't pick this one up. Just be honest from the gate. It's I didn't pick up the Ninth Doctor one either because I feel that if we haven't got the actual actor, so in that case we didn't have Chris Eccleston back, and in this one, so I understand the idea behind it though. It's told from the companion or the supporting cast members' point of view, with just like little narration over the top, which is meant to be. The Doctor, but I just don't feel like it should be a full price release.
Yeah, I get you.
From Big Finish, because it's on, the web special price that they do for pre-order, which is, as you said, $23 for physical and £20 for digital. I just don't feel like it should be priced at the same, level as the releases that do have the actual actors. So, a Meg-Ann release or a Tom Baker release at the same price. So, and I'm not saying anything about what value is in there, because people will see different value in different things. There might, like you said, there's probably an audience for this somewhere where
I'm sure there is.
They're just really into this era, this particular time period of Tennant's Who, and they really enjoy this stuff. So that's awesome. But for me, it's just a case of if this was like £15. Then fair enough. And, that's, I'd probably get a flack for that because it probably doesn't cost Big Finish any less to produce it. They still have to put the resource in and, the time to do it and all that stuff. So a bit of a tricky one from that perspective, but it's just not for me. The same thing with the Ninth Doctor one. That didn't sound that great either.
Yeah, I think it's also because their output is so phenomenal at the minute that I kind of have to be a bit more picky and choosy as well. And, again, a lot of that comes back to price. So, if they weren't putting out so much and this was like a release coming out and I hadn't bought anything for a month from them or whatever, I probably would pick it up out of interest. But it's because, I've got all the Time War stuff going on. We've got the Master stuff going out. We've got the First Doctor's Adventures, the Fourth Doctor's Adventures box set's just going. There's so much out there at the minute. I just have to be much more picky and choosy about the ones I get. So that's the main reason. Like I said, it just adds up too much money otherwise. And I've got all of those releases I just mentioned. I've got. And I've listened to one of them so far. Do you know what I mean? So I just can't be adding more to it. I think, if anything, it's great they're putting out so much, but I sometimes wish they'd just rein it in a little bit, just a tiny bit, just for the sake of everyone's wallets. But there we go.
Yeah. Well, I do quite like what they're doing at the moment where they've announced the volumes for various Doctors. So the recent one that they've done is the Fourth Doctor. So his Series 7 range that kicks off, they've got Volume 1, which is the first bunch of stories there. So I think that's a good idea because that's pretty good value. So for 25 quid or 20 quid for digital, you're getting, the first bunch of stuff there. And you've got it all then. So you can go through it when you want. You don't feel like you have to catch up and pay full price later on because you've missed it, sort of thing. So I think they are doing a few things to make it easier for people to get it. But I do agree they're putting up so much stuff at the moment we do have to be a bit more picky about what we're buying. So I think, rewind a few years, this would have been a fairly, a unique release in the middle of a fairly regular, range of stuff. So it would have been a bit more of an easier decision. But
plus, also they have managed to get Tennant for two,
yes,
for two big releases. I'm thinking of the box set. So 6 stories. Mm-hmm. So also you sort of think we probably will get more with the Doctor himself. So again, that makes it slightly less appealing to me. To have, why would I want someone else playing him when there'll probably be some stories with the real thing, coming up. So that's the other reason. But yeah,
we need Eccleston, as I said, though, don't we?
Oh wait, that man. I don't think he's going to come to any time soon.
Because his feelings towards what happened during the production of the TV show is one thing, but I think Big Finish handles things very differently. So I think he would be very well suited to Big Finish because, he'd probably have a bit more accepted input into his Doctor and stuff, with the Big Finish guys.
Years kept declining, and then Louise Jameson eventually talked him into doing it, and he absolutely loves it now. And he genuinely, if you talk to him about Big Finish, he can't stop talking about it. He really enjoys doing it, and he'll probably admit himself he wishes he'd done it ages ago. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's probably getting him in that booth, getting him to experience the lovely lunches that they always talk about on the making of. Have you noticed that every making of they talk about the lovely lunches? So yeah, maybe if they manage to get Chris in the booth one time.
Come on, Chris, it's not that bad.
No, it can't be that bad.
And I reckon they would sell, if they got Eccleston.
If they got Eccleston and Billy, yeah,
crikey, that it would go mad.
It would.
There's an appetite for it for sure.
Nick Briggs could go to the Bahamas.
He could go to the Bahamas and for a month.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, review time. While Adam's coughing his guts up.
You can't hear. I've turned the mic off right and back.
Let's do our classic review this week. Adam, hit me.
Okay, so this week it's Ice Warriors, it's Sea Devils, it's the Fifth Doctor, it's Warriors of the Deep.
You know him?
Yes, I thought he'd been killed.
Remove these people from the bridge.
You do not recognize me now, but we are known to each other.
You are mistaken. Take him away.
No, wait, please. In an earlier regeneration, you knew me as the Doctor.
The Doctor? You can prove what you say?
I know that you are Iktar, surviving leader of the noble Silurian Triad. When we last met, I tried to mediate between you and the people of Earth.
So it is you.
He's alive.
The commander wasn't so lucky, I'm afraid. He's been shot.
Did I succeed?
Yes, Doctor.
They're all dead, you know.
There should have been another way.
Warriors of the Deep.
I think people are going to be screaming at me. I think I said Ice Warriors. Did I? In the intro, I think I said we've got Ice Warriors, we've got Sea Devils.
Did you?
I think I don't know. If I did, I meant Silurians. I may not have done. I don't know. I don't know what I said. I'll blame the cold.
There's Drashigs. There's Daleks.
There's certainly
everything.
Something to rival a Drashig in this, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Warriors of the Deep, mate. Go for it.
Warriors of the Deep. It was first broadcast back in 1984 in January. It's a 4-parter. It was written by Johnny Byrne, directed by Pennant Roberts, overseen by Eric Sorwood. And it stars the TARDIS team of the Fifth Doctor with Tegan and Turlough. And they are it revolves around the story of two, like the human race is divided into two giant factions, if you like, and the threat of nuclear war is very real. One of the factions that this story is based around has got like this undersea sort of military base, which has got these nuclear weapons and so on, and the Silurians plan to not wipe out the human race, but kind of let them do it themselves. They plan to overtake the base, set off the missiles towards the other faction, the other camp, and then they will retaliate, and then there'll be a great war, and the humans will be wiped. They'll wipe each other out, and then the Silurians can awaken all of their kin, and then live happily ever after on their now owned planet Earth, where the Doctor sort of gets drafted in by the TARDIS is I think originally they're heading for Earth anyway, because the Doctor wants to show Tegan what Earth is like at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And it gets attacked by this spacecraft weapons thing, and as the Doctor tries to sort of do the off-ski, he ends up materializing right into Sea Base 4, which is this military installation, and gets captured, and that's how they get sort of crafted into the story, if you like. And it sort of ends with a very depressing,
very downbeat,
very dark, depressing way, really, like you just heard in the clip there. And so yeah, that's Warriors of the Deep. What do you reckon, mate, before we get into some detail? Yeah.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think somebody pointed out that I'd let slip on a podcast a while back that the last time I watched this, I didn't like it, because I did sort of do a mini review of it on my channel ages ago, where I watched the whole box set and went through which ones I thought were good and bad. And at the time I said, I loved this as a kid. I watched this when it went out. I was probably about 7 or 8 or something, I don't know. So I remember loving it as a kid. And then when the DVD came out, you know how some things just don't live up to your memory. And I watched it and thought, this is so nowhere near as good as I remembered it, Mm-hmm. It really didn't do anything for me at all. I was quite disappointed in it. And the production problems really show big time in this story, and it wasn't the fantastic story I remembered. So anyway, I watched this again last night thinking, oh dear, here we go. Warriors of the Deep. Let's do this. Now, I don't know if I was just in the right mood for it or what, but putting the production issues aside, I actually found this quite an enjoyable watch. I actually really enjoyed watching it for lots of reasons. There were bits of it that had me howling with laughter when they really shouldn't have. But I actually thought, there is quite a decent story in there once you get to it. But it's just the production really, I think, really lets it down. So my opinion of it's kind of gone. It's more in the middle now. Okay. When I watched it as a kid, I loved it. Rewatched it again as an adult, thought it was, really didn't stand up very well. Watched it again last night, and I've kind of gone in the middle of that. It is let down by a few things, and we'll go into those. A lot of them were just they couldn't be helped for the time. But I actually really quite enjoyed watching this, mate. I have to say, I just found it quite interesting this time round. Yeah, I'm glad I've rewatched it, because I don't know that I would have, after the last time, I don't know that it would have come out of the box set for a while. So I'm quite glad I gave it another chance, because, I thought it was all right. Yeah. What about you?
Okay. I think it's got some decent, I think it's a decent enough story. It's this kind of under siege story plot, which we've seen many times on Who, but it works fairly well. My only issue with it is plagued by production problems. You can't get away from that. I think because there was something to do with, didn't Maggie Thatcher back in the day call like an early election or something?
Yeah, so they needed studio space, which meant the recording time, I think, was cut by 2 weeks. So they basically had 2 weeks less in the production to get it done, and everything was just a mad rush.
No rehearsal time, and
they were saying they really should have cancelled it, the first, one of the story, and just gone to the next one or something. They said really to try and make this story in the time they were eventually given was madness. So yeah, it did have a massive knock-on effect in terms of getting this story made, and also it launches series 21. It's the first story in the new series. Bearing in mind we would have had the 5 Doctors before this, which was a massive celebration of the show. Probably brought back a few viewers that may have drifted, and maybe some new viewers as well. So you got the 5 Doctors has gone out, and then this kicks off the new series. So it should really have been a belter to get people into it. And unfortunately, like you said, because of all these issues and the fact it was so rushed being made, it really shows on screen. And I mean, Doctor Who's known for the odd wobbly set or the odd bits here and there. This one, like you said, is plagued with issues, and they're not even very well hidden.
No,
it's not as if you have to be really eagle-eyed to spot them. Like there's one bit where the Silurians walk down the corridor and their blimmin' masks haven't even been tucked in the back of the costume; they're just hanging out off. And you think to yourself, well, God, that there's no way that should have been put out there, because it's not just one of them has got it hanging out. They all have, things like that, and so it's a shame really, because as I said, they were probably on a massive high after the
absolutely
5 Doctors, and then Warriors of the Deep. Oh, what the heck's this?
Yeah. So I like it, in certain respects, but I think it does have an air of sort of foreboding about it as well, because this was the story that the BBC controller at the time sort of made his mind up that he was going to can Doctor Who. So there's a bit of controversy around that as well, where Michael Grade, anyone that's into their classic Who will know that name very well, but he was the guy that, because he was just not a fan of Doctor Who anyway. He just really didn't like it. He thought it was this pathetic.
He wanted shot of it.
Yeah, he really disliked it, massively. But I think because of contract reasons, they had to keep it going for a while. But it was this particular story. When he saw it, he just thought, I can't have this on the TV anymore. It's just got to go. And I think he was the guy that fired Colin Baker as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's got a sort of foreboding, because like you say, it should have kicked off the new, after the 5 Doctors, which was this big celebration, it should have kicked off, and, we should be using, well, I say they should have used that momentum to sort of carry it and, like you say, kick off with a belter and stuff. But I mean, the two main problems I had with it is the production side of things is very poor, even for Doctor Who, which you can account for with the time cut and that stuff. But also I find it incredibly boring.
Do you?
That's my other thing. Yeah, I find this one a real struggle to watch through. So halfway through episode 2, I'm browsing Twitter, Instagram,
right.
The whole. Right. I just can't stay with it. I have to really mentally sort of tell myself, no, carry on watching. So I find it very boring.
It's funny that, because I was like that the last time I watched it. I mean, I really was. I found it quite boring. And like you said, just checking my phone, and I don't know, something about it this time. I just connected with it a bit more. I think one of the things that surprised me about it was how on the ball Davison is in it. He's excellent in this.
He's pretty good, actually. Yeah.
And he gets involved in a bit of a ruckus and seems to be enjoying it, which is, the 5th Doctor was. Yeah, he wasn't always the first one to get in there with the fisticuffs, so that's quite interesting. But he seems to have a bit of fire in his belly in this story, which I thought helped to make it more watchable. Mark Strickson, seems to really love the fact he gets to be a bit laddish and go around with his gun and stuff. And I mean, you're right. It should have been a lot better. I mean, you've got the Silurians and the Sea Devils in one story, and that should have in itself make it. Better than than what we get on screen. The problem is with them is that they've had a bit of a makeover, haven't they? And while I quite like the Silurian makeover, apart from the flashing eye.
Yeah, what's that about? Yeah.
Well, that's weird because in the original it was a sort of ray gun or something, wasn't it? And this one, it's just flashing to let you know which one's talking. So that's a bit of a shame. But I think the mask in that actually looks pretty cool in the design.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas the Sea Devils seem to, I don't know, I miss the string vest really, because they've gone for a sort of samurai look. And they might not be so bad, except that when they finally get some action, they really just, I mean, they clearly just can't see out the costume.
Of course not. No,
because they look about as threatening as a wall plant walking down there. They just look ridiculous shuffling down the corridor with these toilet duck guns, and there's no threat whatsoever from either of them really.
No.
And then of course they bring in the big guy. I mean, we may as well mention him, the Merker.
Yeah,
who's supposed to be the even bigger threat. And yeah, I mean, again, coming back to the production issues, the poor guy had only finished being painted an hour or so before or something. So all the actors, when they start fighting with it, end up with green paint all over their costumes and stuff, if you look carefully. Yeah, and apparently the actors didn't even get to rehearse in it. They were like, literally, the costume's just been finished, get in it, we're going to shoot in, and we've got an hour till we film. And they're like, what? Yeah, just get in it. And apparently it was very uncomfortable. Smell of paint and glue because it's literally just been finished. So the actors inside are, feeling sick from all the, the toxic smells. And I mean, it just is a nightmare, really. And it really shows on screen. I mean, the bit when it's pushing down the polystyrene door is just laughable. It's the sort of thing you don't want anybody who knows that you love Doctor Who to see. It's the sort of thing that if your mate walked in and says, "Oh, you're watching Doctor Who?" Oh, what? And you just wouldn't want them to see that bit because they would be like, "Oh my God, it's so bad," And especially when, I mean, bless him, Davison doing his best to make it look heavy when he's trying to lift it off Tegan's leg. Things like that. I mean, it is a struggle. I will agree with you. It is a struggle. But for some reason, I kind of went with it a bit more on this watch. But I do know what you mean. It's a bit hard going.
Yeah, and it's not from that bad a box set either. So the box set you were referring to, Beneath the Surface, it's got the 3 stories. So it's got Doctor Who and the Silurians, the Sea Devils, and then this one. So yeah, it's not from a bad box set, really. No, it's
a great set. And actually, Silurians is another one that, sometimes I'll watch it and I find it quite boring. Other times I'll watch it and I really love it. And I'd probably put this in the same camp, really, because Sea Devils I absolutely love. I love the Sea Devils. Yeah. But yeah, those, the 2 before and after, maybe I just have to be in the right mood for it.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this review, unfortunately, it will be a bit of a bashing, I think, for some things. Yeah, and to me as well, I wasn't particularly happy with the direction as well from Pennant Roberts. It was, it felt to me like when Davison and Tegan and those guys were. That doesn't make sense. Davison and Tegan.
I always do.
The 5th Doctor and Tegan and Turlough were on screen. It felt like that. The energy was ramped up a little bit more. So maybe that was, a large part of that was down to the actors themselves, trying to bring a bit more energy to what was going on. But I found that all the other scenes with the supporting cast, so the humans that were, managing this base, and when the Sea Devils and the Silurians were sort of having conversation and just, moving between sets, everything moves so slowly. The pacing is just... It's really hard to stay engaged, even in just one scene. Sometimes it happens where you've got so as an example, in some episodes, you might have like a block of stuff going on where people are going from A to B and they're on, a couple of different sets or an outside shoot and so on. And you think, okay, this whole section, could have been sped up a little bit, and but with this one, even just one scene. Like at the very beginning, like when the Vorshak is, saying we need to do a missile test and so on, even just the way that the camera moves just so slowly, and then somebody walks over to a control panel and the finger just moves so slowly to the button and they push, the whole thing just seems really labored, you know, and it's one of those times where I've said this about quite a few classic stories where you just wish that somebody would just run onto the set and fire a gun up in the air, make everybody jump, you know, and get their heart rate up a little bit, you know, and everyone just starts to, you know, just get going a little bit, you know, and just bring a little bit of just gumption to what's going on. Because that's right from the off. So the first scene, it's just, that sets up the story. It's like, oh, crikey. This is going to be a long one. Yeah.
I will agree with you about the direction. I think the direction could have been a lot better. It is a bit laboured. And also we've pretty much got that one style of set throughout the whole story, haven't we? Yeah. Which I suppose doesn't help because it's just that white set, which apparently they had to keep. They sort of built it so they could use it for, you know, to make multiple sets from. So a bit like a Meccano kit. So again, that didn't help because every time they've sort of filmed one bit, like the corridor, they'd say, right, well, we need that bit for the control room now, and had to keep moving bits of the set round to make the next sort of set. And I mean, it must have just driven the director up the wall, I should imagine, especially with the time constraints, because some of them, you know, like they only had one take to do it, and then that just had to do. But yeah, I guess that doesn't help because you just got this, you know, very brightly lit white set for the majority of the story. There isn't much else apart from the Sea Devil spaceship. In terms, so it does feel like one long story, and, you know, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very, all in that one place.
It's very isolated.
Isolated. Yeah.
I read you, man. It's it's just bloody boring. That's the only way. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's probably people that do love this, you know, and a few of our listeners who have sent in reviews, you know, would argue with what I'm saying, which is fair enough. But and also there are just scenes where they just go on for too long. Like there's a scene where Iktar sends the Sea Devils off to go and capture the escaped prisoner. So Davison has been locked up with one of the other people, with an Tegan and Turlo are, you know, they're escaping and so on. And he finds out that they've escaped, so he sends them off. And instead of just cutting there, because you assume that, you know, the Sea Devils would go off and, you know, try and capture them again, the camera just stays there while these poor people in the Sea Devil suits sort of very awkwardly do
shuffle.
like a 180 to turn around, and then they all shuffle out and they're banging into each other.
Yeah, they do actually knock into each other, yeah.
And they're all moving so slowly, but the camera just stays there. It's like, you know, we don't need to see them, you know, awkwardly tripping up all over each other and going off. We know that they're going off to try and capture them. You know, there are just lots of scenes like that where you know, they could have cut and gone to the next one, and it would have helped with the pacing a little bit. So, I mean, it's in a way, it's kind of classic Who at its best, if you like, because, you know, it does fall under that sort of banner that we've spoke about many times, where this went out once a week. So it probably wouldn't have been too much of an issue. But when you're watching, as I did last night, all 4 parts back to back, you know, it does feel like a slog, because you just think, just cut the bloody scene. We know what they're doing. Just go to the next one.
I watched it 2 and 2 actually. Maybe right. I don't know if that helped, but yeah, I probably would have struggled if I'd watched it all 4 in one go. I watched 2 Monday and 2 Tuesday. Okay. You must have liked the scene where Davison has the good old punch up though, and ends up getting pushed in the water tank.
That's cool, that bit.
Oh, that's a good bit, isn't it? Yeah, and the music's good as well. You know, the old. I'll tell you what though, it did make me laugh. Turlo's very quick to leave him, isn't he?
Oh, crikey.
He's very quick to assume he's dead. He's only been pushed in the water tank. He's like, come on, he's dead.
He's drowned. Like Tegan's like,
leave him.
We got to help him. We got to get him out of here. And Turlo's like,
he's off.
He's just ready to jump in the TARDIS and see you later.
There's another bit when he does it as well, isn't there? There's another bit where he says, oh, come on. We can't help him. Let's go. And she's like, you can't do that.
That's right.
Terrible. He's a very naughty.
And Tegan, she reminds him of it as well.
Yeah.
Like when they bump into the Doctor, because Turlo assumes that they've been killed.
I love that bit.
They bump into him and
she grasses him up.
She lands him right in it. She doesn't let it go. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not impressed, is he?
Not at all. But I found that actually quite funny.
Yeah, I did.
Because there is a little bit, because the opening scene of the Doctor that we see, which is sort of Turlo, you know, he's got himself dressed and he's walking onto the console set, and They have like a kind of strange exchange, really, because, you know, the Doctor's like, "Oh, you've decided to stick around," sort of thing. And he's like, "Yeah, you know, time will tell," sort of thing. There's never that kind of, yeah, I'm glad, it's great to be here, you know. Turlough's just like, well, time will tell if I'll still be here, you know, in a little while. And then, like we've been saying further on, Turlough's just ready to drop his gun and leg it. And I'm not sure where he's going to go. He can't pilot the TARDIS, and they're underwater, so I've no idea where he thought he was going. But
I'll tell you what, they wouldn't have any trouble getting in the TARDIS, do they? Because that was one bit that annoyed me. They just leave the blimmin' door open. They've been threatened, shot at, goodness knows what else, but they just leave the TARDIS door open for him to go in. Like that scene when she just walks in and, you know, the sea base crew, I mean, they just walk in the TARDIS, the blimmin' door's open, which is ridiculous. But no, I do like that scene, though, between the Doctor and Turlough right at the start, because it's... I just love the way Davison plays it, because he's like really distrusting of Turlough, which is understandable because he's tried to kill him about 20 times. All the Black Guardian stuff that went on the previous series or whatever. So that's quite nice, isn't it? It's quite good, that little scene, because you can just see that Davison's Doctor's thinking, "I've got my eye on you, mate. you know, we'll see." So that's quite cool.
Yeah, because when Turlough says that, he's like, only time will tell.
Yeah.
And Davison's reply as well. In the TARDIS, that normally...
It always does.
Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, that's a nice little scene. And when we have that really cool bit where Tegan comes out with that horrific 80s shirt on.
Oh, I know. 'Cause she was worried about getting green paint down it from the Mercury. I was thinking, no one's going to tell in that.
It would have done you a favour.
Yeah.
And so she comes out, and we have that. That's what I mean by the direction. So when the principal cast are there, we do have some cool stuff. So they put this really cool filter over the TARDIS, over the camera, and they tilt it around, and, you know.
They do that a lot, don't they? But they don't normally put the filter, which does help, but they always do that with Davison's era, don't they? In nearly every episode, the blimmin' TARDIS, the camera tilts and they're clinging onto the console, and it gets a bit much, actually. But at least they try to do something different.
That's what I mean, yeah. So when the principal cast are on, they do try these things, and, you know, it does look good. But then, unfortunately, we don't really see much else. I think the only sort of bit of exciting sort of camera work and directing that we see is when Davison drops into the water.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool. We rarely see any underwater stuff in classic Who, do we? We rarely see the actors actually underwater being filmed.
No, and it's actually, I mean, I think for most of the time it's clearly him as well, because we get a good close-up of Davison actually in the water. It's a good stunt, actually, when Matey backflips into it. It's done really well, and it matches really well. Like you could believe it's Davison. It's not like an obvious, well, that, you know, you don't look at it and go, "Oh, well, that's clearly not Davison." It's a good matchup for him. So that scene works pretty well, I think. I loved it as a kid. Loved seeing the Doctor, like, you know, getting... Yeah, I didn't know where it was going as a kid. I was like, "Oh my God, how's he going to get out?" Yeah,
because that's a cliffhanger, isn't it? And then we have the fight scene, the mini fight scene later on, where Davison does throw a little elbow here and a throw there.
He gets stuck in this one. I liked that. Yeah.
And then, other than that, the only other sort of things that we see, really, even then, the direction's not very good. It's like the Star Wars-esque. So, you know, at the beginning of A New Hope, where Darth Vader and all the stormtroopers board the Yavin 4, and we got the rebels there and have that shootout in the corridor. It's basically that, where the humans are sort of having a shootout with the sea monsters, with the sea devils.
Yeah.
So basically that in the corridors and stuff, which you'd come to expect.
That scene is really badly done. But it's really bad.
When they're coming through the doors, do you mean, with the Mercury?
Yeah, when they when they sort of come through and start having a gun battle. Because I was thinking back to Resurrection of the Daleks. You know, when they're similar scene, the door blows up and then the Daleks come through and start obliterating. And they have a gunfire. Reminds me of that, but this is, this is nowhere near as good. It's because I don't know if it's just because they're shuffling along, or the way it's shot, or the fact that they're just lining up to be shot, or it's just really poor. There's no tension at all in the scene. No. I don't know what it is about that. Thing is, what do you think of like the redesign there? I mean, the Sea Devils, the voices are brilliant. They sound scary.
They sound good. Yeah.
but they just don't look or move scarily. Like, you can just tell that they can't move in those blooming costumes. I mean, you could literally, it's a bit like the Murky, you could run away from it. People are literally throwing themselves into it and being killed, and it looks ridiculous on screen. Like, the Merc is so clumsy and clearly can't see where it's going, but you could just run away from it. It's, there's, again, it's just no threat from any of the sort of bad guys. Well, actually, they're not bad guys, are they? But you know what I mean, the Sea Devils, Valerians, and all that.
It's an interesting one because I've got two theories on this. The first one is that, this is like, it falls under the whole thing of both the Silurians and the Sea Devils just not being a decent threat. And the Sea Devils specifically is because, one, the costumes aren't very good, and I mean that in terms of how they look. I much prefer how they look in the Sea Devil story. They look really cool in that, and because of the costume, that the actors really struggle, so they move incredibly slowly and they can't really see what they're doing, so they just look very clumsy. There's no threat there. But I'm also not really a fan of like the helmet, the samurai looking helmet and stuff doesn't really fit. And second of all, the Silurians obviously, are in charge of the Sea Devils, so that immediately relegates them down to sort of subservient, sort of,
true.
So in the Sea Devils, it was just them, so they were quite threatening in that, and they looked quite good. And in this one, they're just being told what to do. They're almost like the stormtroopers of. I've mentioned Star Wars loads in this show. I'm sorry, but they're just like the stormtroopers of, the Iktar, the main Silurian. He's like Darth Vader in A New Hope, and the Sea Devils are just all of the, dispensable stormtroopers that just get sent in to get gunned down if need be. And so that's my theory. They get relegated to this sort of second class status underneath the Silurians. So they're just cannon fodder, if you like.
Yeah, a little bit, isn't it? Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I was going to say, because it's weird, isn't it? Because you'd think having these two together at last should be an almighty force. But because they move at a snail's pace, they're actually almost, like you said, they sort of almost takes away from the greatness of the creation, because they are brilliant in their separate stories. I like both of them. But in this, there's kind of, not demeaned, what's the word, but they kind of, they're nowhere near as good, and they should be twice as good.
They should be, because these particular group of Sea Devils, there's like a sort of unique group, aren't they? They're known as the Sea Devil Warriors, and they've got slightly different skin as well. So the original Sea Devils were like this browny, slimy colour, whereas these guys have got this silver look about them, and I think they're slightly taller as well. So they've, they should be these real badass kind of, threatening, sort of race of creatures that the humans would be petrified of. But they just don't convey that in the story. They're just these servants, really.
And whereas I like the Sea Devils' voices, I don't really like the Silurians' voices very much. And it is a shame about the light as well, because it's very tacky, isn't it, having that flashing light? I know why they did it. I know they had to, because the mouth doesn't move. But it is a bit tacky, isn't it, having a flashing bulb? Because they're reptilian, aren't they? So it seems weird to have an electronic thing built into the head as well.
Yeah. So I think, it's a shame, really. Because I did say this at the beginning, this would probably be a fairly negative review, so I do apologise. We'll come on to some good stuff in a minute, but just in terms of the monsters or the baddies or the villains used in this story, once again, it could have been a belter of a story, but it ended up being, from a monster point of view, again, just very, like the direction, just very flat. Because the speed at which these guys move and the clumsiness of it, they should have been the humans in this should have taken them out in like 10 minutes. They should have been gone, because all they've got is these strange little sort of very bad plumbing U-bend kind of little pistol things.
I was going to say, remind me of like a toilet duct gun.
If any of our friends, especially in the US or other countries, don't know what we mean. You can buy this toilet cleaner here in the UK called Toilet Duck, and it's got a standard bottle, but it's got like a sort of swan neck S-bend kind of top bit of it that goes underneath the bowl. And they look exactly like that, don't they?
They do look like that.
Yeah. It's a bit weird, really. Which just adds to the comic clumsiness of it, which again just takes the threat level down by another notch. Because they're very slow to fire as well. Like when the Sea Devils come across somebody, you know, they don't do anything for a good sort of minute. And then they hold the gun up and then the light comes on around the disc first. And then... And then like stormtroopers, they normally miss. So there's this big shootout and they're just firing at the walls and the ceiling. And one of them also comes to his own death where he fires at the canister that's got what's the name of the gas inside it? It's the
I can't remember, but you mean when he melts his face melts?
Yeah. So he's having a good old shootout, and because he's such a rubbish shot, he ends up shooting the canister and it blows back in his face, and that's him done.
Yeah.
So it's
I remember thinking that was quite gruesome as a kid, and then you watch it now and it's like, oh. I'll tell you, there were bits in this that made me laugh that weren't supposed to, and then there was a couple of scenes that were supposed to be funny that didn't make me laugh, and there's one bit which is ridiculous, and I'm assuming in the script it probably worked well, but maybe the set design didn't get the memo. But there's a bit where the Doctor and Turlo are trying to open the door the wrong way, and then Tegan just pushes it open and says, there you go. But I was thinking, you can clearly see that you just pull the handle and the door. You probably may have been looking at your phone and you might have switched it off by that point. But I don't know if you remember that scene.
I do.
It's just the Doctor and Turlo sort of pushing the door. Oh, why would it open? And she just pushes it the other way. And says, there you go. And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure it wasn't supposed to look like that in the design, but. Yeah. But I did like our TARDIS team though in this. I think that's one of the, going with a positive. That's one of the things I really enjoyed rewatching this was I liked our TARDIS team in this. I thought Davison was really good in it, and Tegan, well, she don't get a lot to do, but she's still good in the scenes. I love it when she grasses up Turlo, and Turlo gets to do some good action stuff in it, I thought. So I did enjoy our TARDIS team in this. There's good interaction between them as well in the scenes that they're in. Like you said, they kind of, you're probably like, when you're looking at your phone, if they come on, if there's a scene with them, you were probably watching. And then, like you said, as soon as we get back to like the regular cast, the supporting cast, that's probably when you were switching off, which is understandable. But
let's talk about some good stuff actually, because it's not all bad. Not at all. So like you, I really do like this TARDIS team because although Davison has had a fairly crowded TARDIS team at some point, we've had Nyssa and Adric and some other people. I do quite like this Tegan and Turlo because it does provide a good contrast, because sometimes Tegan and Nyssa were quite similar. Not in terms of their character, but they would sort of gang together a little bit, and they were sort of best buds, if you like.
Yeah.
Because they were obviously very sad when Nyssa left. Whereas Turlo just provides that good contrast to Tegan, because there are, I think one of the stories actually from the Black Guardian trilogy where Tegan's all over Turlo. She doesn't trust him at all. Yeah,
that's right.
So, and also in this story as well, where, Turlo is very quick to just dump, any kind of optimism that the Doctor's alive and ready to do one, and she's like, no, she's very unhappy about it. So I think those two sort of knock off each other very well. They're not very similar characters, so it's good to have that contrast within this TARDIS team.
I was going to say, they are a good contrast, aren't they? Because like Tegan's no nonsense, she'll speak her mind, and Turlo's really shifty, and you just don't know whether you can trust him. Crafty. So that makes her a really good crafty. So that makes her a good combination, actually. Yeah, and also it can be quite a humorous one as well. They use it to good humorous effect, I think, at times. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's really cool. And like you said before, Davison is really trying to make this more of a make this more of the story, because, and we've said this many, many times about some of the Matt Smith stories, and where they could obviously tell, but anyone that's seen the behind the scenes documentary on the DVD of this, or if you've listened to the commentary with Davison and Eric Saywood and so on, even the people making it and Davison himself will say that they're all really disappointed with how, the direction was and the final product and so on.
Yeah.
So in a similar respect to Black Orchid, I suppose, you could tell that although Davison wasn't really impressed with the script and the story too much, at least he's sort of given it his all to try and make it as good as it can be. And that's really evident in this story, because there are a few scenes where he's really going for it, like the scene where he sinks in with the computer to sort of halt the missile launch at the end. He's really sort of intense there. It's a bit like in Caves where the spaceship's crashing down and he's tied up, and it reminds me of that, where he sort of goes really intense and stuff. And at the very last scene, you can tell he's really cut up about it, because a few scenes prior to that, one of the members of the base, I can't remember her name, Karina possibly, she basically says to the Doctor, let's use this. Oh, hexachromite gas, that's what it's called.
Yes.
She's like, let's use this against them. Let's wipe them out. And the Doctor's immediately like, no, we're not going to, no genocide. We know there's another way. And I think it's Turlough that says, he says to the Doctor, they're about to wipe out the human race is about to be obliterated, which sort of changes his mind reluctantly. So, he's got that emotional side as well. He's very cut up about it. And especially when the last scene that you heard in the clip where he sees the dead Silurians and the sea devils littered around the set, it's really cut him up. He's not happy that he's had to make that decision.
No, I thought he was very good in it. I thought we started sort of seeing the slightly more darker, Fifth Doctor that we start to see really in Caves, his last story. We always think, if only he'd done another series, because he's really sort of found a great, persona as the Doctor by then. And I think we see a bit of that in this, because he's not as light and fluffy as he is, in his first series, if you know what I mean. He's really like when he's arguing with, the captain of the base, whatever his name is, is it Volshark, or I'm not sure, but when there's a lot of tension, isn't there, between the people on the base and the Doctor trying to convince them that they're actually trying to help them, which makes for an interesting story in itself. So that adds another element into it. But I just thought he was good at that, because he was a bit more no nonsense Fifth Doctor rather than the sort of pushover, a bit light Fifth Doctor that we got in his first series. So I liked that from Davison. Like you said, he looks absolutely battered by the end of the story. And also it's good to see him in a different costume, because he kind of ends up in one of the sea bases outfits for a while, doesn't he? And again, it just kind of it's more interesting to see him, not in his regular costume as well. It adds another element, a bit like when we get the 10th Doctor in the spacesuit. The first time they did it was quite interesting. Unfortunately, they did it about 20 times after that. But I mean, it's always good to see them in a slightly different costume, just to make it different. Yeah. I just thought he was particularly good in it. Re-watching it again, I thought you're right. He is going for it. He's really trying to make something. He's trying to put a bit of effort in. And like you said, his performance is, up another notch from, I have to say, the supporting cast, who kind of seem to be just playing it by numbers a little bit. I mean, they're not bad. We've seen a lot worse, but they don't stand out either as being particularly good. Especially is it Ingrid Pitt? Yeah, it must be, who does the karate chop on the Merca. I mean that. I really cringed at that scene. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But the supporting cast are not too bad. The main guy's all right. The
Rorschach, Tom Adams.
Is he the sort of leader guy? Yeah, he's not too. Who are they? Because it took me a while to work out what was going on. There's two people trying to sabotage the base as well. So you got Ingrid Pitt's character Solo, and then another guy.
I think that's Bullock. Is that Nigel Humphreys?
Could be. Yeah. Who are trying to sort of sabotage the base as well. So they got another element coming into the story, which didn't seem to go anywhere, but it did add, something enough to keep me interested, if you like.
Yeah, I think that was, so those two people were trying to brainwash, I think, the character Maddox. So this guy,
Maddox, yeah.
Yeah, so he was the guy that was meant to be the sync person, because that was another good thing. It was a clever idea where
I liked that,
because because it was like a nuclear threat, if you like. It couldn't be just as simple as pushing a button and all the missiles go. So they had this clever idea where you'd go through all the protocols as you normally would do with these things in science fiction, but then there had to be an actual person that could act as a sync with the computer to either allow or cancel the launch.
Yeah,
which is really cool. So
it's a nice idea.
Yeah, and the I think in the story the character that was meant to be the sync had died mysteriously before the mission, and so this character Maddox, played by Martin Neal, was sort of drafted in, but he's very inexperienced and he's always sweating and he's just not confident in what's going on. So that was a good sort of little side plot, and I think the idea of sort of putting this disc in and altering his brain and put him under sort of mind control was quite clever. But yeah, like you said, it just didn't quite go anywhere within the story. It sort of ended abruptly with because I think Maddox kills is it Karina, the brown haired lady that's quite fond of him. He ends up strangling her, doesn't he, and kills her. And then he gets
nasty.
Then he does the off. So yeah, it's just an interesting little plot twist. It was quite cool for sort of most of episodes, sort of 2 and 3, I'd say, with that stuff. But yeah, just kind of fizzled out a little bit. Just sort of went nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad thing. It was just another element, really, because we needed something. That we really needed another. If that subplot wasn't in there, it would have been even more difficult to get through.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I like about it really is that they're trying to do the same things as I keep saying Ice Warriors, the Sea Devils and the Silurians. They're trying to do the same thing of get the two fractions of Earth to blow each other up, and you sort of think, well, that's quite interesting because they don't realise they're actually trying to do the same thing. Yeah. So the Doctor's actually in a way trying to stop 3 different people doing the same thing. So that's quite interesting. But as I said, it never quite reaches its full potential in terms of the story or on screen. But yeah, I get where they were trying to go with it, if you like.
Yeah.
I do have one other positive as well. I don't know if you'll agree with this though, is that I thought the model shots for the time were quite good because maybe not so much the thing floating through space towards the TARDIS, maybe not so much that, but the underground sea base and certainly the Silurians sea ship or whatever it is. I thought all that looked really nice, especially the bit where it's shooting out of the pod and stuff, and it looked quite good for. Don't mean this to be disrespectful, but it looked quite good for Doctor Who for that time, because some of the model shots we got back then weren't always the best. They always, they could sometimes take you out of the story a bit and
a bit ropey, weren't they? Yeah,
very. Yeah, but I thought in this one it looked like they'd put a bit of time and effort into it, considering the rest of the production looked so rushed. I thought the model shots actually looked like quite nice, whoever did them.
Yes. No, I agree.
Yeah,
it's good. Some other positives. I really like the music in this story.
Yeah, I like the music. Yeah.
John Gibbs. He did just a few stories in Who, but whenever I'm listening through, the 50th anniversary collection, I listen through that pretty much every day. I would say it's various moments of it, and when it goes through the Doctors in order, it just picks out some stories from each era. And when it gets to this one, I just really, the music's really cool. It always stands out for me when I'm listening to it. And when I hear it in the story, it really fits.
It really suits the story. Yeah, I agree with that.
And he did some great music. The other one that's really, really nice is the Colin Baker, Mark of the Rani story. That's a really nice suite of music for that. I think he did Vengeance on Varos as well, another Baker.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I really like the music. That was a really good fit, I thought, because sometimes in classic Who they just use these sort of bits of stock music that sort of blow out the speakers and are a bit unbalanced. But this was good.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I really like the score. Like you said, I just think it suited the story. And it's funny, when I come to that track on that soundtrack as well, you can immediately see pictures in your mind from this story. It really does suit it. So I thought that helped to push it along a little bit.
And also I know we mentioned that the sets were all sort of very similar, just these very brightly lit sets and so on. I actually thought the with the exception of the very poor quality door that the Merca comes through.
Yeah.
I thought the rest of it was okay, because in a lot of Classic Who, even when we have like 4 or 5 different sets, you can tell that it's all sort of painted MDF, and it's the paint job is normally very bad and stuff. But this was all sort of metal construction, and it didn't seem to have that flimsiness that some of the other sets had. I know it's fairly, I don't know if boring's the right word to use, but although it was quite a samey set and so on, I thought the construction was actually fairly good. I didn't really see much of a wobble going on with a lot of it, but with the exception of the Merca scene.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like the set. I agree with Davison on the commentary that it's a shame that they didn't light it slightly better, because I agree with you. I think actually the set works really quite well for the story. Apart from the doors. And also, if you watch the bit where Davison gets pushed over the tank, just before he sort of turns around, he sort of bangs into the wall. And once you've seen it, you can't not look for it. It does wobble really badly. But those two aside, it's a decent set. And it's got a roof to some of it as well, I think. I seem to remember, which you don't always get, which just makes it feel a bit more real. And, like you could have got some good high shots. See, the Merca, bad as it is, I mean, it would have been very difficult to film it in a way that made it look good. But I do think it could have been shot to look a bit more scary. But
that's the direction, mate. Unfortunately,
that is the direction. I do put a lot of it down. Yeah, if this serial would had more time, more money, but that's never going to happen, and better direction, I think we could have had something decent in there. I think there's enough decent elements. It just is plagued with all these issues that it just, what we get on screen just doesn't do it justice, really.
Not really.
No.
And it's a shame. It's a real shame because, and the thing is, there's nothing you can do. Unfortunately, in the eyes of the BBC, and especially at this time with Michael Grade in charge, Doctor Who was always going to sit at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
So whenever anything happens, like it did with this story or anything, they've got no hope at all of saying,
no, can
we have a bit more time or a bit more money, whatever, because it was never, like you said, it was never going to happen. So it's a real shame. Yeah, so that's the sort of, I mean, for me, like I said, we've gone through some decent bits, and unfortunately there's quite a bit of poor elements to this story, but it just seems to have this weight dragging it down as well, this story, because we have the controversy around Michael Grade and seeing this particular episode and wanting to cancel the show, but it's also during the middle of, or sort of middle towards the end of the production on this one, that's when Peter Davison and Jeanette Fielding decided to throw the towel in as well. So during this, they both said, we're off.
Yeah.
We're leaving. And I think John Nathan Turner tried to persuade Davison to do a fifth series.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I think Davison said, no, I don't want to be typecast, moving forward in my career. So that's it. I think it was Patrick Troughton actually that said, only do 4. Don't do any more than 4 because you'll be in danger of, you'll always be in this science fiction-y type of, of pigeonhole. So
I think Davison says that. I think it's 3 series actually. He says don't do any more than 3.
Oh, 3, sorry. That's
Move
right.
on after 3. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was Pat.
Yeah.
Who said that.
Yeah. So yeah, we persuaded him to try to persuade him to do a series 4, but he was like, no, 3 is enough. No way. So this episode, it does hang, there are certain things that hang off of it that just give it this unnecessary weight to it. It should have been just an awesome, first story of a new series belter, ratings should have been amazing. It should have turned the opinions round to some of the top dudes at the BBC, but I don't know. It's just, it's murked by,
Smirked by the Merca.
By the Merca, yeah. So I've got nothing else really to say about it, mate. It's I don't know if you've got anything in your notes you want to mention.
No, I think we've pretty much covered it, mate. Yeah.
And one of the things that that a lot of people have said about our podcast is that even when we come to very poor stories like this, we always try and find and I've really tried to find the good stuff and not bash it too much, but there are times where, I don't know, I think it's just more disappointment more than anything else.
It is.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of potential, I think, in this one. Yeah.
And I think it's very easy because hindsight is such a beautiful thing, you know, and I'm sure pretty much the instant after this went out, the people who were making it, and, you know, they probably felt the same thing. It's probably like, oh, you know, we could have done that better. And, you know, with maybe a few tweaks of the lighting and the camera angles, we've had a bit more impact here and stuff. So hindsight's a beautiful thing, but just disappointment, really.
Yeah.
Rightio. Scores. It's you to go first.
It's me, is it? Okay. I'm going for a 6.5 on this one. 6.5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, as I said, it's yeah, I didn't mind it this time. I kind of could see all the faults in it, and it certainly wouldn't be up there as one I'll watch a lot, but I kind of enjoyed it this time around. So yeah, 6.5.
Okay. I'm going reasonably low with this one. Not so I'm going to go with a 4.5.
Oh, blimey, that is low. Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I would initially, after I finished watching it last night, my initial thought was, well, that's a real sort of middle of the road. That's around a 5 to me. But then I thought to myself, well, you know, I just cannot find, you know, more stuff because if it's a middle of the road, that means that supposedly that means that, you know, I've got equal amounts of good and bad going on. But for me, unfortunately, there's more, you know, subpar stuff going on. So I couldn't go middle of the road. So just under with a 4.
I hear you.
0.5.
Understandable. Yes.
So we had a load of stuff in from our beautiful listeners. Let's kick off over on Twitter. So our buddy Morgan, the Gallifreyan Whovian, says, while it's mostly, you're right there, mate. While it's mostly hated, I think it's a decent watch, full of pacing and badly constructed rubber monsters. But the overall plot, getting the humans to destroy themselves, is actually pretty dark. And the base under siege element works really well. 6.7. He's very specific with his
6.7. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
At DWSSG01 says, a very guilty pleasure. It brings back nostalgia of 84 and my first season with a video recorder. So I am ham-fistedly edited all of the episodes into stories. Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's continue with Sarah Louise Baggett, the running Whovian, says, not keen on this one, but the rewatch did offer a lot of nostalgia. Usually it's the monsters made out of bubble wrap. This time it was the bed covers. Great to see the Silurians and the Sea Devils. Good voices too, but the Merca kicking down the door did make me cringe.
Yeah.
She gives it a 6.
Okay.
Out of 10. Blazing Callum 29 says, an interesting idea but poor execution, bad design for the Silurians, and I think a low budget really has a negative impact on this one. Great acting and direction though.
I wouldn't agree with the direction, but anyway, yeah.
Mike Friendly 03 says, criminally underrated in my opinion, and there's some truly great moments. Once you get past the tattiness and the cheapness, it's a very enjoyable story. By no means a good Doctor Who and the Silurians or the Sea Devils, but still an underrated gem for me, 7 out of 10.
Okay, good.
Philip Smith at the Ginger Doctor Who says, based under multiple sieges with some clever direction and strong performances from the cast, despite the criticism often levelled at the Merca, there was much to enjoy from this story. Okay. Moving over to Facebook. Martin Arnold says, never mind the critics, this is actually a really good story with an interesting and cynical ending. The base is populated by people in bizarre accounts of makeup. He says, there's that scene. I think he refers to the Merca there. He says, the Merca looks more like Dobbin, the pantomime seahorse. He says, but come on, guys, we're Whovians. We can look past all the production issues. It's got Silurians and the Sea Devils tag team, so give it some love. David Paul Morgan says, enjoyed this one. Classic base under siege scenario. The false alarm nuclear Armageddon was a timely story during our Cold War years. The use of the silver data discs was interesting. Performance-wise, some top-notch actors here, and our TARDIS team gave their usual all. Not too much screaming. He says the hexachromite gas as a solution, quote unquote, was a tad obvious, but oh dear, don't mention the Merca. He gave it a C base 6 out of C base 10. Steve Herr says, okay, you could watch this with your adult head on and pick it to pieces, but where's the fun in that? Put your 12-year-old head on and enjoy monsters, sea creatures, karate kicking doctors, and lots of green gunk-inducing killings. 8 out of 10 for sheer entertainment.
Okay, fair enough.
Russ Hilton says, I'm with all those who said we need to look at this with our child head on. It's too easy as adults to tear into the costumes and the Merca. As a story, this was not only topical at the time, but well written and thought out. A strong cast and 2 related monsters teaming up. 7.5.
Okay.
Sammy Satine says, happy Australia Day, or it will be when this goes out. It's nice to see the Sea Devils and the Silurians together, though why do the Sea Devils have double chins?
Oh, it happens to us all.
That's
Sammy,
just an age thing, Sammy. Yeah. Also, Tegan and Turlough were less annoying than in other stories. Davison was good. 4 points off for the Sea Devils' chins.
Oh,
so
dear.
I assume she gave that a 6. Now, we got a very, very long review from Thomas Cookson, and I can't read all of it out because he really went into detail, but I'm going to say that he hates this story.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so just to pick out a couple of bits, he says, not only a poorly produced visual disaster, but with a hateful and mean-spirited rotten heart to boot.
Oh.
He goes on to say, it's almost as if we're to believe the Doctor spent the entire Pertwee and Tom Baker eras spitefully contemplating betraying us all to that week's invaders, and he finally does so here. He says the much-celebrated final line is ripped off from the first Dalek serial. The Cold War mutually assured destruction angle was done much better in that too. And there was no reason for this story to exist. Frankly, it's almost a shame Michael Gray didn't cancel the show before this could air to disgrace the canon.
Oh, rotten heart, Tegan.
Thomas Cookson is livid about this story.
Oh, wow, not a fan.
He says, sad that only a story prior, on the 5 Doctors, the show's future seems so bright and so capable of charming and winning mainstream audiences before this almighty kick in the face.
Right.
I'm going to say that he's probably down the 1, potentially 0 out of 10 mark.
I think 0 C bases out of 10.
Interesting stuff there, Thomas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers, Thomas.
Maria Kalichel says, all I'll say is I love Tegan's costume in this and remember making my own version.
Oh.
Maria, that's quite a claim. Good story, if so overlit.
Yeah.
Needed lots of shadow to hide Dobby. The Merca. Thank you, Maria. Jason Thayer says the Merca is terrible. Good commentary on the nuclear arms race, though. 4 out of 10. Lewis Palmer. It's okay, not the worst of all time. Fairly well written story, which is let down by many other factors. It's a shame that this indirectly led to the cancellation of the show. With Grade always pointing to this one as to why he canned it. He does love the final scene. It's so dark and it's contributing to season 21's character arc for the 5th Doctor. He's the kindest Doctor, and throughout these stories, he's put through the absolute worst. Great stuff. Overall, it's just average. I think there's a lot wrong with it, but some good stuff too, 4.5. And Lewis put £1 in the swear jar for calling it season 21 and not series 21.
Oh, right. Yeah, I thought so.
Stan Gallagher says, Peter's line at the end is very noble. I like the story, but the costumes were bad and some of the co-actors were bad. George Puddy, who I'm actually going to read out this week because I always miss his review when he emails in. I'm very sorry. George Puddy says, so Warriors of the Deep, this is a guilty pleasure for me. In the same way that Gary likes Time Flight and Adam likes Time and the Rani. Very true.
Very true.
The effects are incredibly poor, even for Classic Who, and the acting from guest characters is pretty dreadful, yet it has somewhat of a charm that I can't really explain. There is just something about seeing the Sea Devils and the Silurians in a story, and I actually prefer the Sea Devil redesign in this one. Overall, it's a poor story, yet one that I really enjoy. I give Warriors of the Deep 6.5.
Oh, same as me. Cheers, George.
Cheers, George. Last few now. Martin Howes says, first story I can clearly remember from childhood and all down to the Merker. Jason Howes says, I can't help but like this story. Has many flaws, but beyond them, there is a good story. One scene that always sticks in my mind from watching it when it was first transmitted is the Doctor falling into the water. The still wet green paint from the Merker affected our TV. Also affected our TV as the picture went green partway through one of the episodes. Oh, spooky. And lastly, Mark Daniel Mooney says, very short and sweet. It's flawed, but a certain scrappy charm to it.
Nice way of putting it.
Yes. Anything over on the Geeks Handbag stuff?
Yeah. I've got a very long review from Kevin Mullen, but I think I can sum it up in one word. Kevin would agree with our friend earlier that really didn't like this one. He says, another boring Davison story. He says that the Silurians look cheap with their flashing eyes. Doesn't like the Sea Devils redesign. It does think the sets are quite impressive, but basically he says, bland. 125 / it just says it's bland. I mean, Kevin's just really not a fan of this. If you want to read his full comment, head over to Facebook page. Quite funny. Loopy Lou says a good fun watch. She loves Turlo and Tegan on their own. Thinks they're a good team.
Cool.
Jonathan Dolan says he absolutely loves this story. He says he was 4 or 5 when it first aired, and he was in hospital at the time. He said his aunt taped it along with the 5 Doctors, and he repeatedly watched them and never got bored.
Oh, cool.
He likes the fact that the story is set against the threat of nuclear war, and the Sea Devils, despite having an appalling aim, they do, look like an impressive army. He says he likes the new design. Doesn't give it a score, but basically, I think he's a fan. He says he really loves it. Gavrick Sawyer says it's probably the nostalgia of watching this as a small child in the early 2000s, but seriously, I don't really get the hate, he says. Sure, the effects aren't all that, but when was Classic Who really notable for having cutting-edge visuals? He goes on to give it a 9 out of 10, so he really likes this one. Just got 2 more. Got Patrick Sherwood, who says... So the story to me, I like this one. Thinks it's one of my favourite Peter Davison stories, he says. One of his favourite, he means.
Okay.
He gives it a 9.5 out of 10. And finally, Charlie Turner says, not perfect, but a nice watch if you're in the right mood. Oh, that's interesting. That's what I said earlier. He gives it an 8 out of 10. So mostly positives there on Geeks Handbag. One, Kevin Mullen, who's... not a fan. Bland, he says. So, yeah, mostly okay, though. I think nostalgia seems to be playing a big part in this, I've noticed.
Yeah.
A lot of people around my age that probably remember it and enjoy watching it again, but can realize, appreciate its faults.
Yeah. It's always a dangerous thing, viewing stuff with the old nostalgia goggles on.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it can't be helped. That's just the way it is. I'm guilty of it many times.
Yeah.
With things. But there we go. A bit of a mixed bag, some high scores and some low scores. But I would say if I had to average it out very roughly, we're looking at middle of the road.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
What have we got next week? It's modern Doctor Who or new Doctor Who, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so Matt Smith next week. Interesting one, I think this is going to be to review Asylum of the Daleks next week. Asylum of the Daleks. This kickstarted a series as well, didn't it?
Series 6, wasn't it?
Was it? Or, I thought it was 7. I don't know, but I remember it was at the start of a series. I remember thinking, ooh, a new series upon us. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that one.
I can't remember. It's been so long since I've watched it.
I haven't watched it for ages.
Oh no, hold on. It was series 7 because that's when they kicked off the kind of movie style posters for each story, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And if memory serves as well, this was a Moff written episode because he kicks off the.
Oh, probably because it's
So it'd be interesting.
First one. Yeah, it would be a Moff one, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So get your DVDs or Blu-rays out for that. We'll be asking for your thoughts as always. Asylum of the Daleks. And I think we'll wrap there, mate, for 173.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sticking with us for 173. and your continued listenership, support, and so on. It's great stuff. Just want to reiterate what I mentioned at the beginning of the show. Thank you so much to all of our listeners who have either listened from the early days, or if you've just jumped on board the TARDIS. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much. It sounds cheesy and corny, but it really does make the podcast sort of validate what we do, if you like. Because like we mentioned earlier, we could just, bleat on for ages into empty ears or empty space, and that wouldn't be very good. So thank you once more. So next week, Asylum of the Daleks. Get that watched. We want your reviews on that. We want to hear what you guys think. I think I've seen that one time, if memory serves. I think I saw it when it went out. Yes, I'm positive. I saw it when it went out, but I didn't watch it when I picked up the Series 7 box set.
Yeah, I've watched it twice, I think, when it went out, and possibly once more.
Okay.
Yeah, but not for a while.
Okay. So that'll be good. Good to go through that. So head over to the website, www.bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. You can listen to all of our previous shows on there. You can also check out all of the wonderful articles that we have going out on a weekly basis from our cool writing team. And on the website, you can also find links off to all the social stuff. So give us a like and a follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. And podcast-wise, you can also link off to iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify, all those things. So you can give us a subscribe on there, which would be great. And if you're an iTunes listener, if you could send us a review and a rating, if you've got a minute, that would be awesome, because that really helps. Also, check out Adam's channel, The Geeks Handbag. Yeah.
Geeks Handbag.
Just do a search for The Geeks Handbag on YouTube. He's got a great channel over there. Also, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, Snapchat, all that stuff.
Everything.
Everything. It's a great channel there from Adam. Loads of really, really cool videos. So head over there and check him out.
Yes.
Until next week for 174, my name is Gary.
And my name is Adam.
And remember...